wherever you're watching from, within and beyond the borders. Welcome to DBN News Desk. I am Esther Kimani. Kirinyaga County Assembly members have questioned the rationale in the Senate's Special Committee's decision to acquit Governor Anne Waiguru. The MCAs say they will institute a fresh process of impeachment to remove the governor from office. The MCAs have also dismissed Waiguru's claim that she was a victim of powerful forces within and outside Kirinyaga due to her stand on the Building Bridges Initiative process and the handshake between President Uhuru and ODM leader Raila Odinga. Citizen report.
Honorable Senate, while we did not get the result we hoped for, we thank you for your time and commitment to the process. We, however, wish to point out that the body of your report did not speak to your findings. For a fact, we find it hard to understand how officers under the governor's watch were found culpable while the master was spared. Coincidentally, this was the same case with the now infamous NYS scandals. For how long will the same person go unpunished for transgressions committed on our own people under her watch? But we shall not give up. Neither your deep pockets nor your influence will desist our pursuit of justice for the people of Kirinyaga. So help us God. Her insinuation in the Senate hearing that our impeachment was all about BBI politics in Kirinyaga and the Windamount Kenya region, she brings nil value to BBI politics in our county. Our people have suffered enough, and they have no confidence or trust in the governor of Kirinyaga and her government.
The conviction and sentencing of Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke and Grace Wakungu in the 314 million shillings National Cereals and Produce Board scandal has no doubt opened a can of worms and sent jitters down the spine of many high-profile individuals with corruption cases in the court. NTV report.
You perhaps have been asking how a fictitious 314 million shilling invoice was paid through the public coffers in the maize scandal that has seen Sirisia Member of Parliament John Waluke and Grace Wahungu sentenced over it. Well, deceit, manipulation and intimidation were at the center. Proper connections in the right places was the aiding factor, and a chance-disputed election nailed it for these fraudsters. The plot begins in 2004 when the government issued a maize importation quota to bridge the deficit that exposed many across the country to hunger and possible starvation. The Minister for Agriculture then was Kipruto Arap Kirwa. The convicts, John Waluke, the late Jacob Juma and Grace Wahungu, through their company Erad Supplies, won a contract to supply 40,000 metric tons of maize. We now know they never delivered on that contract, and they never intended to deliver the maize. The dispute was to drag on to 2007, and after the disputed election, William Ruto became the Minister of Agriculture. The ministry was then to commission an investigation, and after a report was delivered, the whole board of NCPB was sent home, save for the chairperson, Jim Nambaru. The new board members were Dr. Adrian Wekulo, Elias Barishil, Rosa Akinyi, Mohamed Islam, and Timothy Busienei. 7 months after the appointment and the successful arbitration between NCPB and Erad Supplies, the company was awarded more than 300 million shillings in damages for the aborted contract. Lawyer Evans Gaturu was the appointed arbitrator. NCPB, being dissatisfied with the award, went to court, and Erad Supplies appointed city lawyer Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi to represent it. The award was transferred to Soita and Saende Advocates, which in turn paid the lawyers 79 million shillings. Wahungu and Waluke were paid 90 million shillings, while the huge sum of 127 million shillings was collected in cash by a faceless individual who became the major beneficiary. The landmark ruling was delivered by Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma. Eyes now turn to the DPP to see if the other individuals who are party to the scam will be taken in to face charges. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
The Evangelical Alliance of Kenya has opposed the Reproductive Health Bill 2019, currently before the Senate, with claims that it advocates for underage sex and same-sex marriage as part of its agenda. The mover of the motion, Nakuru Senator Susan Kehika, however, denies the claims, saying the bill does not in any way support anything outside the Constitution. More from Citizen.
The Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019 by Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika seems to have rattled members of the clergy. And on Sunday morning, the evangelical members of Kenya were up in arms, terming the bill extreme, describing it as an abomination. The chairman of the Kenya Evangelical Alliance, Bishop Kefa Umae, says the bill's connotations are not only problematic but ungodly.
It legalizes the killing of disabled and mentally retarded persons in their preborn stages of life. Every unborn child has a right to life.
The church leaders, citing among other things that the bill normalizes underage sex, encourages same-sex marriages, and teaches that sex is for pleasure, among other things.
And goes further to open the door for children between the ages of 10 to 17 that they should receive contraceptives, safe abortion, and comprehensive sexuality education, which teaches that sex is for pleasure and that sexual pleasure is a right. If we allow sexual pleasure to be taught as a right, what happens when one wants a pleasure and there is no consenting partner of the opposite sex?
The main clauses in the bill include access to family planning, assisted reproduction, safe motherhood, termination of pregnancy, and reproductive health of adolescents. Senator Kihika says the clergy has either misinterpreted the bill or not read it at all.
That is misinformation, that is malice, and that is just intended to whip the emotions of the public, because there is not such a thing in the bill. It is a reproductive healthcare bill, not an abortion bill, not encouraging rape, not encouraging underage sex, and definitely not encouraging same-sex marriage.
The senator argues the formation of the bill involved even church leaders from the onset, and the bill now in its third reading at the Senate is only supplementing tenets under the current constitution. She says the bill is essential in the education syllabus in carrying information on reproductive health.
So what the bill seeks to address is have in a school setting, in age-appropriate adolescent healthcare services, where there's like counseling on abstinence, like we're talking about. If it's not on abstinence and they're already engaging, then they are also counseled on the effects of, say, abortion. And I know there was a big issue on consequences of unsafe abortion. That was one part of the bill, on the bill. And we've had people complain about the unsafe part of abortion.
Should this be passed into law, Kihika says the bill will help solve the issues in reproductive health in the country for now and into the future. Makori Ongechi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
In Naivasha, a middle-aged woman is being held by police for allegedly killing her 4 children aged between 2 and 8 by giving them poison. Police swung into action after bodies of the minors were found locked in their house located near Naivasha High School by her brother. She is suspected of committing the Hyenas Act on Friday evening before fleeing to Kayola Estate, where she was arrested. KTN News reports.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of human beings has been laid bare during this coronavirus pandemic period. In Naivasha, a 42-year-old woman is in police custody after she was arrested in connection with the murder of her 4 children through poisoning. A letter found in the crime scene links her to the murders.
Na mambo haya ni ya kuhuzunisha sana. Hii ni kitu ambayo imeshangaza watu wengi sana wa Naivasha kwa sababu ni kitu tumekaa sana hatujasikia mambo kama haya.
The bodies of the 3 girls and a boy were retrieved yesterday by police officers who were called to the crime scene by the suspect's brother, Jackson Kimani.
Alikuwa ametutumia picha za watoto. Kwanza nikashangaa ametuma picha kwa nini? Halafu akasema tuombee watoto wake maana amewaua.
The suspect had 6 children from 2 different marriages. In a letter addressed to one of her sons, Alex, she begs him not to panic over the contents of the letter. In the letter, she said, and I quote, "I beg you in the name of Jesus not to panic for what I am about to confess to you." She says that she poisoned them because she wanted to cut the generational link from the other family and that she cannot stand seeing them suffer due to the hard economic times. She added that she was ready to go to jail, and if she had a stable job, this would not have happened. She says she was yet to pay the rent for the months of May and June, and that Alex should talk to the caretaker to dispose of the items left behind if need arises to be able to clear the bills. The woman had bought clothes to bury the girls and told Alex in the letter that his deceased brother's clothes will be bought by the family and they will get a place to lay them to rest. She caps off the letter with a scripture, John 14:1, and the grace prayer. The scripture reads, and I quote, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Police say the suspect will be arraigned in court to face murder charges. Fred Kagonye, KTN News.
Now, more than 200 women and girls around the world bear the scars of female genital mutilation, a practice that is shrouded in secrecy and checked by threats of violence for those who opt to speak out. However, it is a fight that many are willing to engage in to save many girls at risk. Citizen gives the details.
Her silhouetted image could perhaps describe the darkest years of her life she has so far lived, years that have sent 60-year-old Nongera Lelimo live gaps in the lives of many women and children for circumcising them in Baringo County.
I was paid 200 shillings to circumcise girls.
That, coupled with a mitt from the back of a ship, was good enough motivation for a job she proudly executed for 5 years, losing count of how many girls she has mutilated.
We circumcised in the morning and afternoon those who looked mature or were getting married. It was done on the right side as you enter the house.
At barely 12 years of age, Nongera says she was married off to a man who was older than her father. They are still together and have been blessed with 4 daughters.
I was circumcised.
But why a change of hat for something she held so dear, a rite of passage that is regarded as purifying a woman?
It wasn't helpful, so I decided to join the church.
Including using the faith base.
Every so often, Nongera joins other women in the area who share the same vision as her. Young girls who are rescued and others who continue to bear the brunt of undergoing the cut.
Wakati unajifungua, unakatwa. Iyo cut kila wakati, iyo pain ya cut. Alafu unajua saa zingine wakati unatembea, unapata ile mwili yako inakuwa nyepesi, saa zingine unatoa tu hewa haraka haraka, yani inafunguka. By the way, ile uzazi inafunguka.
Susan was 15 years when she underwent FGM. Aged 47 now, she wishes she knew better than to opt to consent to the cut.
Tukienda soko tunaenda sa team. Wakati wanaenda wanakucheka vibaya mpaka unakufa, unaisha nguvu. Sasa utakubali kuchekelewa ama unaamua kufanya?
The World Health Organization indicates that female genital mutilation involves the partial or total removal of external female genitalia or other injury to the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. While 200 million girls and women alive today have been subjected to the practice, here in Kenya, 22 out of the 47 counties are regarded as FGM hotspots by the Anti-FGM Board, a majority lying within the Rift Valley region.
Other than Nakuru here and part of and Trans Nzoia and the entire Turkana County, the other 11 basically have got issues with FGM because we will have this challenge with our political leaders. Some of them are only interested in votes. They are not really ready to come out in public and talk about FGM. And the focus of all this that many of these leaders actually have not taken their own children to FGM.
So deep is FGM embedded in the culture that for some communities it is a taboo for a man to marry a woman who has not been circumcised.
I have a daughter who got married, and my daughters don't get cut. And the man married my daughter. Later on, he called me and told me, "Mzee, we have realized that your daughter is not circumcised." So I told him, well, yeah, that's how she was. And that's how she is, and that's how she will be. You can now decide to live with her, or we take the necessary action. He couldn't do anything. He ran away and leaving my daughter alone without any care. Fortunately, she had not given birth. She came back home, and I took her back to school.
In 2011, FGM was outlawed in the country, there being no defense to consenting FGM. In 2019, President Uhuru Kenyatta declared his commitment to ending FGM by 2022, a position that has seen many like-minded organizations fully take part in.
There must be sufficient incentive for either people to stop or disincentive for them to stop. That's all that needs to happen. And that's what we need to work against. Because the question I ask is this: if it's going to take a long time, if it's going to take some time for culture to go away, how many more girls must die? How many more girls must be mutilated before that needs to happen? The only acceptable number is 0. Culture is not static. We cannot hide beyond culture to violate rights or to do harm.
Speaking out against FGM has not been easy.
Wakati unatembea kwa village, unapata watoto wanasema, kwani uko na right gani? Mimi naweza fanya vile nataka. So kuna ile upungufu ya ule mtoto, ako na ile ukiburi. So unahurumia kwa sababu aoni mwili yake. Anasema naweza fanya vile nataka kwa sababu yeye si mzazi wangu.
Kajiado is the only county amongst the 22 hotspot counties that has a county level policy to end FGM. Because without a council level policy, it becomes more challenging for the county administration to also put its resources and to also deploy its own mechanisms.
The challenges of cross-border FGM and medicalization of the cut, to the extent of having new mothers undergo the cut immediately after childbirth, creating a loophole in the fight.
They sing religious songs, you would think that there is worship in that home, while there is a woman in the house operating the girl. And then they continue singing like, Tenda mema buana. Which mema is buana tendering when you are circumcising the girl in the house?
But for those who carry the scars, the fight against FGM is more alive in their hearts. No level of threat will scare them. Nongera Lelemo's action of choosing to drop the blade that threatened the lives of a majority of girls is a clear illustration of when the bit changes, you must change your dance step, a step that she and others have taken to eradicate FGM in their community. Rakal Muigai, Citizen TV in Ngambo, Baringo County.
The Kenya Editors Guild is calling for the formation of a media sustainability fund to help the media industry survive the COVID-19 pandemic. NTV tells us more.
County governments to offset pending bills owed to media houses. Please do that to enable them sustain their operations. The Guild is also pushing for tax incentives for the media industry struggling in the face of the pandemic. The editors have also called out what they term as the unprofessional methods some media companies are using to let go of their staff. Some media colleagues have recently been notified of their sacking by way of a text message.
Committed funds to help the tourism industry, for example, which has been particularly hit hard by COVID-19. The same consideration should be extended to the media sector, along with dedicated funding from all other available sources.
We all understand the situation we are in, but the most important thing is we consider these people as people with families, people with commitment, people with loans. So let's not, when we were employing them, we had a very good discussion. So even when we are laying them off, can we also have a good discussion?
Internationally, the UK's top civil servant, Sir Mark Stedwill, who advises Boris Johnson on national security matters, is stepping down. He's leaving in September in what's said to be a big shake-up of the civil service. There have been reports of tensions between Sir Mark and the Prime Minister's chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, about the handling of the coronavirus pandemic and plans to reform Whitehall. The announcement comes ahead of a speech by the Prime Minister on Tuesday, where he is expected to set out how the government hopes to rebuild the UK economy after the coronavirus lockdown. BBC reports.
Jessica, what's behind all this?
Yeah, one man goes, what does it all mean? Well, it will fuel this idea that Downing Street is determined to shake up Whitehall, everything from how decisions are made to the kind of people who are recruited to make them. And people don't get much more important around here than Sir Mark Stedwill, the UK's top civil servant, the man who literally sits alongside Boris Johnson at the cabinet table. Now, he was recruited by Theresa May. He'll stay in post until late September before he moves into another role. But there's been a lot of speculation about his position, and the way the story spilled out, it has been criticised by the union that represents senior civil servants. They say Samak's been undermined. They've described the situation as corrosive. Now, Samak Sedwell has another role, National Security Advisor. He's going to be replaced in that by a man called David Frost. You might know that name. He's the UK's chief negotiator with the EU on trade talks. But look, whether it's a Whitehall shake-up or big spending on big infrastructure projects, these ideas predate the pandemic, but they seem to be regarded with renewed importance by Number 10 going forward. But look, big ideas, relatively easy to talk about, a little harder to make them a success.
Okay, Jessica, thank you. Jessica Parker there at Westminster.
Across the world, 500,000 people have now died from corona, and more than 10 million have been infected. A quarter of all those infections and deaths are in the US, which is by far the worst hit country, with a sharp spike in infections recorded in southern and western states. The US Health Secretary is warning time is running out to contain the virus. Al Jazeera with the details.
The coronavirus is marching through America. In Houston, Texas, hospitals are quickly running out of intensive care beds. In Florida, Arizona, and Texas, mobile testing sites are being overrun, with people waiting for hours, many turned away. Health experts warned this would happen. In many of these states, mostly Republican governors moved to reopen businesses, stressing the importance of the health of the economy. Now critics say the public health system and a growing number of people are paying the price, while the Trump administration says there is no connection.
All 50 states are opening up again to one degree or another. States like Florida and like Texas actually began to open up in early May. For the better part of 6 weeks, John, we did not see any significant movement.
But if you look at this tracker showing which states meet the government's criteria to reopen, only 4 are safe. The ones in red are seeing large spikes in cases. And now at least one member of the administration is sounding the alarm.
Window is closing. We have to act, and people as individuals have to act responsibly. We need to social distance. We need to wear our face coverings if we're in settings where we can't social distance, particularly in these hot zones.
But in many of these states where cases are on the rise, there is no mandatory order to wear masks in public. And in many ways, this has become a partisan issue. While the vice president attended an event Sunday where the crowd seemed to mostly wear masks, the president has not done the same.
And my understanding that the Centers for Disease Control has recommended the use of masks, but not required it because they don't want to offend the president. And the president should be example. You know, real men wear masks.
For the president's part, his focus, at least on Twitter, was elsewhere, retweeting this video of supporters yelling, "White Power."
White power! Yes, there you go!
He appears to have deleted it before leaving the White House once again, his weekend spent golfing. By some estimates, the number of cases that have been reported each day has more than doubled over the last 2 weeks. And given the way this virus spreads, that means the number is likely to jump dramatically in the days and weeks ahead. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Maryland.
Exit polls suggest Poland's president has won the most votes in the first round of the country's election, but Andrzej Duda has not picked up enough votes to prevent a runoff poll next month. Al Jazeera reports.
It had been a tight race, a battle of ideals pitted between populism and progress, but a frustrated win for the man who had occupied the role for the past 5 years. Andrzej Duda had tied his fate to the right-wing Law and Justice Party and placed his bet on a deeply conservative, often homophobic agenda. Still, he attempted a positive spin on the outcome.
The result is better by far than the one from 5 years ago with 10 other candidates. Thank you very much for your support, but first and foremost, I would like to thank my compatriots for the turnout, for this massive participation in the election.
But this was a campaign fought in extraordinary times, deferred by the pandemic. The vote was supposed to have taken place in May, which would have put Duda comfortably ahead of his rivals. Instead, the delay allowed for his strongest rival, Rafał Trzaskowski, to throw his hat in the ring. a pro-EU centrist, and the mayor of Warsaw, whose liberal views have at times put him at odds with the country's influential Roman Catholic clerics. To consolidate his base, Duda invoked a nationalist program condemning the country's LGBT rights movement as a foreign ideology more destructive than communism. And under his watch made constitutional reforms that put the independence of the country's judiciary at stake by giving politicians the power to fire judges if they disagreed with their legal decisions. A move that strained Poland's relations with the European Union, who saw it as an assault on Poland's and the bloc's own legal system. But Andrzej Duda also had international supporters who chimed with his populist tactics, perhaps hoping an endorsement from the US president just ahead of the election would boost his voting base.
He's doing a terrific job. The people of Poland think the world of him. And, by the way, Mrs. Duda, who's a terrific woman who we've gotten to know also through our various travels and meetings.
Duda's failure to secure an outright win now means that both he and Trzaskowski will face each other again next month. But what won't be clear is if it will bring to an end Poland's bitterly divided politics. Sonia Gallego, Al Jazeera.
Senators in the U.S. state of Mississippi have voted to replace the state flag, the last in the nation to display the Confederate battle emblem. The bill now goes to Republican Governor Tate Reeves to be signed into law. Many see the current design as racist for its links to slavery in the South. Al Jazeera tells us more.
A contentious flag that symbolized America's past connection with slavery, soon to be gone. Lawmakers in Mississippi voted overwhelmingly to remove the state flag 126 years after it was adopted. The last of its kind in the U.S. to carry the symbol of the Confederate States that fought and lost the Civil War to maintain slavery in America.
Do you want to be on the right side of history, or do you not? And I'm proud of the vote that I personally cast here today, and I'm certainly proud of the other 80 individuals who came alongside to cast that same vote.
For many, the Confederate flag symbolizes hate.
My parents and grandparents experienced much terrorism and tyranny under that flag. As a younger Mississippian, a millennial, it represents darker days of our state when our state government and various others used it as a symbol of supremacy.
Others argued getting rid of the flag is another attempt to wipe out America's history.
They're going to change everything. They're taking the monuments down. They're taking your flags down. They want to take Columbus down. They want to take George Washington down.
In 2001, Mississippi voters decided by a 2-to-1 margin to keep the flag as the official state emblem. But times have changed. With the death of George Floyd in May, sparking nationwide civil rights protests highlighting racial inequalities, a renewed call to change the flag. This time it was successful. But a new flag is just the first step in achieving racial justice, some argue. More is needed in a state where 31% of blacks live in poverty, compared to 12% of whites.
The flag is a symbol, and I applaud them because now it relieves the trauma that I face daily and what most African Americans in this state face. So that is a positive. But from a substantive angle, we have to see these policies that are punitive and draconian right now. We have to get rid of those policies so that we can have equal playing field once and for all.
A 9-person commission will oversee a new state flag design. Voters will approve or reject it on the ballot in November. Gabriel Zondo, Al Jazeera.
Hundreds of Hong Kongers marched silently through the city streets on Sunday in protest against the looming national security legislation to be implemented by the mainland Chinese government. France 24 reports.
Marching through the streets of Hong Kong, the pro-democracy movement continues its protest against China's national security bill.
我哋係唔容許咁樣樣，我哋要站起來，我哋要打倒所有剝奪我哋自由、
High-profile activist Joshua Wong says he expects to be the prime target of the legislation.
Once the law is implemented, I and the city's freedom lovers will probably be subject to secret trial, torture in prison, and television confession. Therefore, I call on the world to stand with Hong Kong and urge Beijing to pull back this evil law.
The draft law has not yet been made public, even to Hong Kong authorities, though certain details have emerged. Beijing will have power over how the law should be interpreted, overriding Hong Kong's judicial or policy bodies. Beijing will set up a national security office in Hong Kong to collect intelligence and handle crimes against national security. This office could send some cases to be tried in mainland China, though Beijing says this would be a tiny number of cases. The protesters are concerned China is eroding the high degree of autonomy granted to the territory when it was handed over from British rule in 1997. On Saturday, Hong Kong police banned an annual march to mark the handover, saying such a gathering would violate current COVID measures. Meanwhile, in Beijing, the National People's Congress reviewed the draft. China says the bill will target only a small group of troublemakers as it tackles separatism, subversion, terrorism and foreign interference in the territory. It's unclear what activities would constitute such crimes and what the punishment would be. The laws are expected to be passed before the end of June.